I still remember the first time she said it, half drunk, leaning against our granite kitchen counter after one of her gallery openings. "You'll never find anyone better than me," she said with a smirk, swirling her red wine like it held the truth of the universe. I laughed it off. Back then, I thought it was confidence, maybe even a little charming. Now, I hear those words echo in my mind with a very different tone. We'd been married almost 10 years. Call it a slow boil. There were no explosive arguments or soap opera-level scandals, just erosion. A little bit of her pulling away here, a touch of coldness there. At first, I excused it. Stress, deadlines, career growth. I wanted to believe she was just overwhelmed. But over time, I stopped recognizing the woman I'd built a life with. The first time I noticed something off, it was subtle. She had this laugh, light, sincere, that used to spill out when we watched stupid sitcoms or walked past street performers. That laugh disappeared. Instead, there was a new one, sharper, calculated, used more for effect than emotion. Then came the secrecy, locked phone screens, business trips that didn't quite add up. Her scent changed too. She started wearing a perfume I didn't recognize, one that lingered in the hallway long after she walked through. I asked, once gently. She brushed me off. "Don't be insecure," she said. "I'm building something. For us." But it wasn't us she was building. The real fracture happened on our anniversary, 8 years in. I'd planned something simple. A private chef. A playlist of songs from our early days. I even dug out the photo album from our honeymoon, the one with sand still stuck between the pages. She came home 2 hours late. No apology. She barely looked up from her phone. "I told you I had a client dinner," she snapped, dropping her bag. "You don't listen." I did listen. I just didn't believe her anymore. What do you do when your gut tells you the truth, but your heart isn't ready to hear it? You stall. You rationalize. You tell yourself love is patient. But love isn't blind. And it sure as hell isn't meant to make you feel small. About 6 months later, I met Eva. Not romantically, not yet. We were introduced at a business conference in Chicago. She worked for a rival firm, sharp as glass, but warm too. We ended up seated next to each other during a panel on digital ethics. I liked her instantly. Not because of how she looked, though she was beautiful in a soft, thoughtful way. I liked her because she listened. Really listened. Asked questions. Laughed without agenda. Later, over coffee, she said something that hit me like a slap I didn't see coming. "You ever feel like you're performing in your own life?" I didn't answer. I just stared at my cup, because she'd nailed it. Eva didn't know it then, but she'd just kicked open a door I'd been afraid to admit even existed. Still, I didn't cheat. Not physically. Not emotionally. I distanced myself. I stopped trying to please my wife. I started going on walks again. I journaled. I hit the gym, not out of vanity, but to feel something again. My focus at work sharpened. My appetite for her approval dulled. And then the cracks in her mask became impossible to ignore. A text popped up one night while she was in the shower. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait for the next." It wasn't even a hidden contact. Just a first name, Alex. I sat there staring at the screen, the water running in the background. I didn't feel anger. Just confirmation. This was it. The quiet betrayal. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just steady erosion until nothing remained. When I confronted her, she didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't deny it, either. Instead, she sighed like I was an inconvenience. "So what now?" she asked. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, holding her phone. "You tell me." She tossed her towel on the floor and pulled on a robe like we were discussing dinner options, not the collapse of a decade. "You can't seriously think you'll find someone better than me," she said, half laughing. "I'm the prize here." There it was. That sentence. Again. And this time, it didn't sting. It crystallized everything. This wasn't a woman who loved me. This was a woman who loved the pedestal she believed she stood on. I moved out a week later. The divorce was quiet. Mutual on paper. Publicly, we were just another couple who grew apart. Behind the scenes, I protected my assets. I wasn't vengeful. I just knew better now. I let her keep the condo. I didn't fight over the furniture or the art. Let her have her spoils. Meanwhile, Eva and I had stayed in touch. Not romantically. She respected boundaries. But once I was free, once the ink had dried, things shifted. We started dating slowly. Cautiously. I was wary. She was patient. And somewhere along the way, I stopped thinking about my ex. Not because I hated her, but because I finally understood Some people love the version of you that serves their narrative, not the real you. Eva loved the real me, the flawed me, the man still carrying baggage but trying to lighten the load. One night, while walking through a Christmas market, she mentioned offhandedly that she used to go to school with a woman named Lila. Total diva, she said. Thought she was untouchable. My heart stopped. Lila Monroe? She blinked. Wait, you were married to that Lila? And just like that, the universe handed me a strange, full-circle kind of closure. That same night, I asked Eva to marry me. When we sent out the wedding invites, I didn't plan on inviting Lila. That would have been petty. But life, as always, had its own sense of humor. It turned out we had mutual friends, enough overlap that word got to her. And on the day of the wedding, there she was, standing at the edge of the reception hall in a navy dress, clutching a glass of champagne, her face unreadable. She'd come with a +1 I didn't recognize. I barely acknowledged her. Why would I? But when Eva walked down the aisle, elegant, grounded, glowing, I felt something shift in the air. A ripple. A reckoning. I didn't look at Lila, but I knew. She saw it. The respect. The joy. The partnership built not on pedestal and performance, but on mutual belief. Later, Eva introduced herself formally. I think we were in AP English together, she said with a smile. Lila froze. Oh, right. Eva. And then, as if fate itself were writing the script, Eva leaned in and said, soft, sincere, not smug. You were right about one thing. He didn't find someone better. He found someone right. I didn't think she'd actually show. The wedding was small, intimate, just 60 people. Family, close friends, a few colleagues. We held it in the garden of a restored farmhouse outside Napa, sunlight filtering through sycamore trees, rows of wildflowers blooming like something out of a dream. The kind of setting Lila once scoffed at. Too rustic, she'd have said. Not enough marble. But there she was. Lila, standing near the fountain, champagne glass in hand, wearing a dress that probably cost more than the entire reception. Her hair was perfect. Her expression wasn't. She didn't know I'd seen her yet. She was scanning the crowd, maybe looking for someone to anchor herself to, someone who knew her before this moment. But she looked out of place, not because she didn't belong socially, but because she didn't belong anymore. This wasn't her stage. Eva didn't flinch. She saw Lila too. Saw her before I did, probably. She looks familiar, Eva said, calm, with a touch of irony. She should, I said, adjusting my tie. You went to high school with her. She chuckled softly. Eyes still on Lila. Oh, I know. She used to call me Mouse. Thought I was invisible. And now, she took my hand. Now she gets to watch me marry the man she took for granted. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I don't say that to be poetic. I say it because it felt real. Honest. We didn't write our own vows for the sake of being quirky. We wrote them because we had something to say. Something true. About forgiveness. About rediscovering self-worth. About how it takes a special kind of love to pull someone out of the wreckage of their past without demanding they be spotless. I kept my eyes on Eva the whole time. I could feel Lila's presence somewhere behind me, but it didn't matter. Her ghost no longer haunted the house. When the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride," it wasn't just a kiss. It was a closing door. Later, during the toasts, Eva's father gave a speech that nearly broke me. He talked about watching his daughter go through heartbreaks, watching her struggle to believe she was worthy of something good, something lasting. Then she brought home this man, he said, pointing at me, and I saw peace in her for the first time in years. I kept it together. Barely. Then came the surprise. Eva pulled me aside and said, "There's someone you need to meet." I turned, confused, and there she was. Lila. I didn't expect a confrontation. Honestly, I expected her to slip out unnoticed, tail between her legs. But here she was, eyes glassy, smile tight. "Congratulations," she said, voice steady but thin. "Thanks," I replied. She glanced at Eva, who stood calmly beside me. "You really know how to pick your moments," Lila said to her, half smirk, half wound. Eva didn't miss a beat. I've always had good timing. Unlike some people. Lila flinched, barely, but it was there. She turned back to me. "Look, I didn't come here to cause anything. She trailed off. I waited. I wasn't going to rescue her from silence. "I wanted to see it," she finally said. "See if it was real. If you were really moving on." "You mean if I really found someone better?" I said, quiet, measured. She hesitated. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. You did, I said. You absolutely did. And maybe you believed it. Back then, maybe I did too. But you were wrong. She looked down. Her posture collapsed in on itself a little. What happened to you, Lila? I asked. Not cruel. Just curious. She looked up slowly. I chased the wrong things. That's what happened. And now, she exhaled. Now I get to be the woman who lost you to a girl I used to call invisible. That's poetic, isn't it? Eva didn't gloat, didn't smirk. She just held my hand a little tighter. Lila took one more sip of champagne. He's better with you, she said, eyes flicking to Eva. I can see that now. Then she turned and walked away, heels crunching against gravel, disappearing down the path toward the parking lot. No scene, no meltdown, just a quiet exit, the kind that comes when you finally understand what you've done. That night, after the guests had left and the music had faded into the stars, Eva and I stood barefoot in the grass, champagne in hand. You okay? She asked. I think I am, I said. I think I'm finally free. From her. From the idea of her, I said. From the version of me that believed I needed someone like that to feel complete. Eva leaned her head against my shoulder. She was never your prize. I looked at her. No, I said. She was the lesson. Eva kissed my cheek. And I'm the reward? I laughed. No, you're the partner. The equal. The one who didn't need to be better, just real. Our honeymoon wasn't some far-off island or five-star retreat. We chose a small cabin in Colorado, buried in evergreens, miles from anything resembling ambition or memory. Just us. A wood stove. A kitchen we actually used. Silence that didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. It took a long time to get here. There were moments in that cabin when Eva would catch me staring into the fire a little too long, quiet in that way I used to be when I was still married to Lila, like something inside me was waiting for the ground to collapse again. She never pried. She just pulled me closer. You're safe, she'd whisper. Funny how hard that word can hit when you've lived years never hearing it. One morning, snow started falling while we were making breakfast. Thick, slow flakes, just like the winters I remembered as a kid. Eva reached for the radio and started humming along to some old jazz track. Then she turned to me, holding 2 mugs of coffee, and said, You still think about her sometimes, don't you? I didn't lie. Yeah, sometimes. She nodded. No judgment, just understanding. I would too. It's not regret, I said. It's just recognition. Like when you pass a building where something used to happen. Eva smiled. You're allowed to remember, as long as you don't try to move back in. We laughed, but she was right. That's what healing looked like for me. Not erasing the past, but putting it in its proper place. A memory. A warning sign on a road I no longer travel. A few months later, we had dinner with an old mutual friend, someone who'd known both me and Lila back when things still felt normal. Over wine, he said, You seem lighter. Like a man who finally took off a coat he didn't realize was weighing him down. I did feel lighter. Not because I'd won. Not because I got to flaunt some poetic justice. But because I stopped needing validation from the woman who treated love like a competition. Lila was right about one thing, though. I didn't find someone better. I found someone who respected me. Someone who didn't see love as leverage. Someone who believed in partnership over pedestal. That matters more than anything. Sometime later, I got a letter from Lila. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter. The handwriting was familiar, though shakier than I remembered. It wasn't long. She said she was moving out of the city. Starting fresh. She apologized. Not in a grand, sweeping way, but like someone who finally saw the shape of their own shadow. She wrote, I wasn't the prize. I was just scared of not being one. There was no return address. I read it once, then tucked it away in a drawer I rarely open. Because closure doesn't always come with a ribbon. Sometimes, it just arrives quietly, in cursive. Eva and I now live outside Seattle. Quieter pace. We have a garden. A big dog. I work less. Write more. Eva started mentoring young women in her field. She doesn't talk much about high school, but every now and then, she'll mention it with a shrug. They saw me as background, she said once. Now I get to help other background girls take center stage. I couldn't be prouder of her. Sometimes, people ask how I knew she was the one. And I always say the same thing. Because she never needed to prove she was better than anyone. She just loved me the way I was learning to love myself. Honestly. Patiently. Without conditions. And that's the story. From the woman who told me I'd never find someone better, to the woman who never made me feel like I had to. Sometimes we think we're chasing love, but what we're really chasing is worth. The person who sees that in us, not what we bring, not what we offer, just us. That's the person who's worth building a life with. And if someone ever tells you they're the prize, let them watch you walk away. Because the real prize is peace. And once you find that, everything else is just noise.